A former astronaut turned U.S. Senator is raising serious concerns, warning that this massive missile defense plan could cost trillions and still fail to work.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I want to talk about the proposed Golden Dome missile defense system. There's a request to spend $25 billion in this year alone. First of all, is this system designed to intercept a full salvo attack?
Senator, it's a multi-layer system that would include different types of salvos. Obviously,
so it's not just Rogue Nation. Okay.
Well, it's meant to. Yes, it's not meant to be just one nation. It could be utilized in
against Russia and China, full salvo. So, what kind of reliability are you aiming to build into the system? Are we looking for something like 4 nines on intercept success? 99.99% reliability.
Obviously, you seek the highest possible. You begin with what you have and integrating those C2 networks and sensors, building up capabilities that are existing with an eye toward future capabilities that can come online as quickly as possible, not just ground-based, but space-based.
So against future capability too. So do you believe that we can build a system that can intercept all incoming threats? You think we could build that system? This is a very hard physics problem.
You would know as well as anybody, sir, how difficult this problem is, and that's why we put our best people on it. We think the American people deserve it.
So let me tell you what I think we're facing here. You're talking about hundreds of ICBMs launched simultaneously, varying trajectories, MIRVs, so multiple reentry vehicles, thousands of decoys, hypersonic glide vehicles, all at once. And considering what the future threat might be, it might even be more complicated than that. And you're proposing spending not just $25 billion, but upwards of, I think CBO estimated this at least $500 billion, other estimates, $1 trillion. I am all for having a system that would work. I am not sure that the physics can get there on this. It's incredibly complicated. So I want to get to another issue that you're facing here. How much of the staff of the Office of the Director of Operational Test and Evaluation did you cut?
After collaboration, sir, with the service departments, the Joint Staff, and others, we identified that as a place where there were redundancies and multiple additional layers that were unnecessary.
I'll tell you what you cut. You cut 74%.
Most of it. That's what I was going to say.
Most of it. And was your decision to cut more than half of the Pentagon's testing and evaluation office staff driven in part by concerns about the office's plan to oversee testing of Golden Dome?
The concerns were not specific to Golden Dome, sir. It was years and years of delays unnecessarily based on redundancies in the decision-making process that the services, COCOMs, and the Joint Staff, together with OSD, identified as a logjam that was not helping the process.
To get the reliability we would need, you need something that's at 4 nines, 99.99% reliability, with all these challenges. And you cut the staff of the people who are going to make sure this thing works before we make it operational, before we give it to the warfighters. You got to go back and take a look at this. But I also strongly encourage you to put together before we spend $25 billion or $175 billion or $563 billion or $1 trillion, put together a group of people to figure out if the physics will work. You could go down a road here and spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of the taxpayer money, get to the end, and we have a system that is not functional. That very well could happen. And you're doing this just because the president, and I understand your role as the Secretary of Defense. You got to execute what the president says. But this idea, might not be fully baked. And you can get in front of it now and figure out and find out if you put the right physicists on this. And I'm not saying go to the big defense contractors. Going to scientists, and I know there's a questionable relationship with this administration and scientists, but go to some scientists, figure out what we would have to do to build a system, and then make smart decisions before we spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars.
Senator, we're doing that, leveraging existing technologies and not premising the project on aspirational technologies, what we can actually do, and would welcome.
Well, $25 billion in the first year is a lot of money. That's more than just figuring out if we have the ability to build a system that can handle a full salvo threat, hypersonic glide vehicles, MIRVs, thousands of decoys. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Senator Kelly. Senator Sheehy.
What happens when cutting-edge science runs into political ambition? That's exactly what unfolded when Senator Mark Kelly confronted Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth over the proposed Golden Dome Missile Defense System. At first glance, the idea sounds straightforward: build a multi-layered shield to intercept incoming missile threats, even from major powers like Russia or China. But Kelly made it clear, this is far more complicated than it sounds. We're not talking about stopping a few missiles. In a real-world scenario, the U.S. could face hundreds of intercontinental ballistic missiles launched at once each, carrying multiple warheads, along with decoys, maneuverable re-entry vehicles, and even hypersonic glide vehicles designed to evade defenses. That level of complexity pushes the limits of modern physics and engineering. And that's where Kelly's warning becomes critical. In missile defense, good enough isn't good enough. A system that works 90% of the time still allows massive destruction. Even 99% reliability might fail under a large-scale attack. That's why he raised the idea of near-perfect performance, something like 99.99% success, and questioned whether that's even realistically achievable. Hegseth acknowledged the challenge, but emphasized building on existing technologies and improving over time. However, he stopped short of proving that such a system could actually meet the extreme reliability required. Kelly's concern wasn't just theoretical. Missile defense systems have struggled for decades, even in controlled tests. Real combat conditions, with decoys, countermeasures, and simultaneous launches, are far more difficult. And then there's the cost. Estimates suggest this project could run into the hundreds of billions, possibly even $1 trillion. Kelly warned that without fully understanding whether the science works, the U.S. could spend enormous amounts of taxpayer money on a system that ultimately fails. That concern is amplified by reported cuts to the Pentagon's Independent Testing Office, the very group responsible for verifying whether systems like this actually work before deployment. In the end, Kelly's message was simple but serious. Before committing massive resources, make sure the science is sound, because the stakes couldn't be higher.